There's this phrase in the Bible that confuses everybody. And we've talked about it, we've looked at it several times. It's in Romans chapter 11. Let's go to Romans chapter 11. And Christian theologians and pastors and Messianic rabbis and all kinds of spiritual leaders have been arguing about this passage for 2,000 years. Nobody has a good handle on this passage until the Messianic Jews started developing in 1967. And I think that Messianic Jews have the best handle on this because they understand Romans 11. Romans 11 talks about the Jewish tree and the Gentile branches being grafted into the Jewish tree. We understand that. The Jews understand that. Gentiles read it. It's hard to understand. But embedded in this Romans 11, in verse 25, it says, I don't want you to be, it actually says ignorant. Mine says uninformed. It's not uninformed, it's ignorant. I don't want you to be ignorant of this sod, this mystery. Because if you're ignorant of the mystery, you'll be arrogant and you'll be so smart in your own eyes. And here's the mystery. A partial hardening has happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles has come in. And thus all Israel will be saved, just as it is written. The deliverer will come from Zion. He will remove ungodliness from Jacob. And this is my covenant with them when I take away their sins. Now this little phrase, and thus all Israel will be saved, people lose their minds about this phrase. I mean, to me, it's very, very, very simple. In the day of the Lord, the Jewish people will be saved as a nation. I'm not going to look at them very deeply, but one of the things we're going to look at is that Joseph is a picture of Yeshua. We saw this last time I taught. Joseph is a picture of Messiah. If Joseph is a picture of Yeshua, and Joseph is reunited with the sons of Israel, that means that Yeshua is going to be reunited with the sons of Israel. You cannot find, no matter how hard you look, on the internet, out of the millions of entries of Bible studies, you cannot find when this is going to happen. I did an exhaustive search. I tried every combination of words I could think of to try to find when the Jewish people will be reunited as a nation with Yeshua. You cannot find it. You can look under Joseph being reunited with his brothers. You can look under Jesus. You can look under Israel believing in Jesus as a nation. You can look at Israel being reunited with Yeshua or Jesus Christ. It doesn't matter. You can't find it because nobody knows. So I have a theory that I'm going to propose. I'm going to give you my theory of when this is going to happen. I always thought it happened in the middle of the birthpangs. I don't believe that anymore. And this passage that we're going to look at in the Torah is why. Let's go to the Torah portion, Genesis 44. We know, the basic premise of everything I teach is that everything in the Bible is a picture. Everything in the Bible is a picture to teach us about, what's going to happen in the future, who God is, the plan He set up, and there's all these patterns that repeat over and over and over again. So that's the foundation. Well, we know about the 7 years of the birthpangs. We know it's called birthpangs. We know it's in the day of the Lord. We know it's the first 7 years of the day. We know all these things. Well, knowing the patterns, then if we look at this story about Joseph, we should see when Yeshua is joined together with his brothers. And it should tell us right in the passage. And I think it does. So let's go to Genesis 44. I've trimmed this down. I always do this for you. I've trimmed it down.
45. Turn on the switch.
Turn on the switch. There's too much going on here. So, in chapter 44, 18 through 45, 15, is this long story about Joseph being reunited with his brothers. Check the, okay, good, that's working. So, Joseph said to his brothers, please come closer. Now this is chapter 45, 4 and onward. Joseph said to his brothers, please come closer to me. And they came closer. And he said, I am your brother Yoseph, whom you sold into Egypt. Do not be grieved or angry with yourselves because you sold me here, for God sent me before you to preserve life. For the famine has been in the land these 2 years, and there's still 5 years of famine left. Now remember, Pharaoh had a dream in which he saw 7 good years and then 7 bad years. And that he saw it twice. We know that in the day of the Lord, those 7 years, they go along concurrently. On the earth is bad, in heaven is good. 7 years above, 7 years below, at the same time. But how do you see that in a picture? And so God showed it to him one and then the other. And so this confuses people. They think it's 14 years. It's not 14 years. It's 7 years on earth, 7 years in heaven. Actually, the other way around. 7 years in heaven, 7 years on earth. Those 7 years are a picture of the birth pangs. Yes?
Yeah.
What year was he reunited with his brothers?
Second end of the second.
Second year. Doesn't say when. It just says there's we're in the second year of this thing. The famine has been in the land these 2 years, and there are still 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvesting. God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant in the earth. A remnant in the earth. Very important word. Sha'arit. Say sha'arit. That means remnant. Sha'arit. And to keep you alive by a great escape. It was not you who sent me here, but God. I will also provide for you, because there are still 5 years of famine. Behold, your eyes see me. Your eyes see me, brothers. This is, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many thousands of others, this is the Jewish people seeing Yeshua face to face, eye to eye. And the eyes of my brother Benjamin, that it is my mouth which is speaking to you. Then he kissed all his brothers, and he wept on them, and afterwards his brothers talked with him. So the first thing we're going to deal with is Joseph is a picture of the Messiah. We saw this last time I taught, so we'll go through it fast. Both Joseph and Yeshua were the beloved of their father. Joseph was envied and hated without a cause. Yeshua was hated by the leaders. John 15:25, Yeshua says, they hated me without cause. A root out of dry ground. It says in Isaiah 53 that the Messiah would be a root out of dry ground. What does that mean? That means that his mom, Joseph's mom, could have no more kids. In fact, she couldn't have kids, period. She was barren, and then she had Joseph. And then she was barren again, and then years later she had Benjamin. So Benjamin was a root out of dry ground too. So it was the Messiah, root out of dry ground. He foretold that one day he would rule. Yeshua kept saying that. He said it at Hanukkah, and they picked up stones to stone him in the temple, Yeshua, during Hanukkah, because he foretold that he would rule over Israel. Accused of being a dreamer. In other words, he's nuts. The guy's nuts. That's what they were saying about Yeshua. That's what they said about Joseph. Sent by the Father to seek his brother's welfare. Yeshua was not God while he was on earth. What was he?
Human.
What was it? What else was he?
Shaliach.
Good. The Shaliach, the apostle, the sent one. While he was on earth, he was the Shaliach, the sent one. He said hundreds of times, I was sent by my Father. I am sent. I've been sent. I am the sent one. I am the apostle. Said it over and over and over again. than he was God after his resurrection. Joseph went willingly to seek his brothers. Yeshua went willingly from the Father to seek Israel. His brothers conspired to kill him, just like Yeshua was conspired against to kill him. They stripped off his clothing. Who stripped off Yeshua's clothing?
The Romans.
The Romans?
So,
Wrong. One time it was the Romans and one time it was Israel. It was both. Because remember, it happened to him twice. It happened to Yeshua twice. They pulled his garment off, the Jewish people, and they put a robe on him, purple robe. Later on, when they were going to crucify him, they pulled that robe off and they pulled it into 4 parts. The Romans did that, and they gambled for it. Stripped off his clothing. Uh-oh, what happened? Stand by. Okay. Can I go forward?
yep.
There we go. All right, so, and there's more. There's a lot more. He was thrown into a pit, sold for silver into the hands of the Gentiles, raised from the pit, became a servant. Everything he did prospered, raised. He resisted temptation, falsely accused, numbered with transgressors. All these correlations between Joseph and Yeshua. We talked about this last time I taught. And that's not all of them. That's only 3/4 of them, or 2/3 of them. So there's a lot of correlations between Yeshua and Yoseph. They are the same person. Yoseph is called, the Messiah is called, there's 2 Messiahs in Judaism. What are their names? Messiah ben Joseph and Messiah ben David. Well, Joseph and David are the best pictures of Yeshua in the Bible. So that's why Yosef is a picture of Messiah. He's the best picture of Messiah in the Bible, except for David. Now, Romans 11 says, a partial hardening has happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles has come in, and thus all Israel will be saved. So the question is, by everybody that I've read, is, does that mean all the Jews from all eternity? That's, a lot of people believe that. That all the Jews from all eternity, from Abraham on, will be saved.
No.
That's ridiculous. If they're not born again, they're not born again. Their spirit's not alive. And this all comes from a confusion about what it means to be born again. Most people don't even know what born again means. It means your spirit was dead and Yeshua made it alive. That's all. That's all it means. Most people don't know that. Most Christians don't know that. Most Messianic Jews don't even really know that. Like if you ask them, what does it mean, Messianic Jews, if you ask them, what does it mean to be born again, they'll say, to believe in Jesus, or accept Jesus into your heart. Not true. It means your spirit is alive. That's all. If Jewish people's spirits are not alive, they're not alive. Their spirit is dead. If Gentiles people's, our spirits are not alive, they're not alive. They're dead. That's why we reach Jews with the message of Yeshua and Gentiles, to get their spirits alive. That's the big argument, believe it or not. So, in the day of the Lord, all Israel will be saved. Now, Eileen and I were talking about this, and I asked her, do you think it means saved spiritually or saved from their situation? And she says she thinks it means saved from the situation they're in. And I said, well, the context of what's being quoted by Paul is Isaiah 59, and it's not about problems, it's about salvation. A Redeemer will come to Zion, and to those who turn from transgression in Jacob, declares the Lord. As for me, this is my covenant with them. My spirit, which is upon you, and my words that I put in your mouth, will not depart from your mouth, nor from the mouth of your seed from now on and forever. This is about salvation. This is about the Spirit and the Word in our spirits together. The Spirit and the Torah are one. Only if you're born again. So in the day of the Lord, all of Israel as a nation is going to know the Lord. Leda'at et Adonai. Leda'at et Adonai. Know the Lord. And it says in Jeremiah, they won't say one person to another in Israel, know the Lord. Because all of them will know me, from the least to the greatest. So this is about salvation. My question is, when? When is this going to happen?
Beginning of the third day.
This is what I want to know. All right, so back to the Torah portion in Genesis 45. I'm going to read this in picture form. Instead of Joseph, I'm going to say Yeshua. Because Joseph is a picture of Yeshua. Then Yeshua will say to his brothers Israel, please come closer to me. Now this is really important and it's awesome. Rashi on this verse says, please come closer means he saw them drawing backwards, getting farther away. So he said, now my brothers, they're embarrassed. So he called them tenderly and pleadingly and showed them that he was circumcised.
Right.
Now think about that with Yeshua. Yeshua, I mean, nobody believes Jesus is Jewish. Nobody, I don't care who says this. They don't believe it.
Right.
Jews, Messianic Jews don't believe Jesus was Jewish. They believe it up here, but they don't know it. They don't see him as a loudmouth, pushy Jew. They don't. They see him like all the stories show him. When they quote verses, and I know this because I'm one of them, and I was with them for many, many, many years. And in all our conversations, when the verses are quoted about him walking on the water, instantly they see those pictures that have been around for 2,000 years. So did I. And it takes a lot of work to really see Yeshua as a Jew. So I don't believe Messianic Jews when they tell me, oh, I know Yeshua is a Jew. Yeah, they believe it up here. But it takes so much work of studying Judaism to really see Jesus as a Jew. It's hard, really hard to see him. Because our first response in our brain is to go back to what we've seen and heard and believed and been taught. And it's really hard to separate ourselves from that. You have to sort of become a blank slate. It's very hard to do. So, yeah, they might believe in their head that Yeshua was circumcised and a Jew, but they don't know him as a Jew. They don't know him closely as a Jew. If they did, they wouldn't ever say the word Christ. Ever. But they do. Because he's still to them communicatable as Christ. And Christ, I don't know if you understand this, but Christ is not circumcised. Christ is hellenized. Messiah, Mashiach, is circumcised. And Christ means Messiah. But the perception of Christ is not circumcised. The perception of Mashiach is. I don't know if you understand that, but that they're two totally different people. Now look at this again. Joseph said, oh no, come back to me. Don't leave, come here Jews, come here. Let me show you my circumcision. It says in Deuteronomy 18:15 and 18:18, it says, I will send to Israel a prophet like you, Moses, from your brothers. In other words, he's a Jew. Yeshua has to be a Jew. Christ can be anything he wants. He can be a Mormon. But Yeshua has to be a Jew. And they're two totally different people. The prophet must be like Moses, must be of Israel, must be a Jew, therefore he must be circumcised. And in the day of the Lord, I don't know how it's going to happen, but God is going to open the eyes of the Jewish people. And I mean even Messianic Jews. And show us that he is a Jew. I don't know this 100%, that he's a Jew. I get it more and more every week, but I don't know 100% Yeshua is a Jew. I still have to fight my way to believe that and see it. So, I believe that in the day of the Lord, God is going to break the Jews down farther and farther and farther and farther until all of our resistance is totally gone and we finally go, all right, you're the Messiah, you're a Jew, I get it. Now, I want to know God and be totally open to it. And then back to the passage, and he said, I am your brother Yeshua, whom you sold into the Gentile world.
Yeah.
Because remember, they threw him into a pit. They sold him to the Ishmaelites, the Midianites, and then Egypt. That's the world. Yeshua, the same thing has happened. He's been sold into the Gentile world. And there he stayed. Now look at this passage. This is a weird thing here. Eli Yassif, in the magazine, a Jewish magazine called Tablet, he says, although Toledot Yeshu, which is the book or generations of Yeshua, Jesus. Now Yeshu is an acronym meaning may his name be erased. That's what Yeshu means. It's an acronym. Yod, Shin, Vav. May his name be erased. But that's what the Jews called him. So in this book called Toledot Yeshu, it understands the full gravity of the dispute with Christianity. It does not seek to lay all the blame squarely upon the shoulders of the most detested personality in the history of Judaism. And he says this in a Jewish magazine, and everybody goes, yeah, that's true. Did you ever think of that? Jesus is the most detested personality in the... That means he's worse than Hitler. Did you ever think of that? And Gentiles wonder why Jews don't get born again.
Right.
He's worse than Hitler amongst the Jewish people. The most detested personality in the history of Judaism. And we're going to be reunited with him as Israel. Israel is going to be reunited with that guy. Matthew 21 says, Israel threw Yeshua out of the vineyard. And the vineyard, we know from Isaiah 5, is what? Israel. Israel. Threw him out of Israel and killed him. It's not just a parable. It's the truth that Yeshua is not in Israel. Yeshua has nothing to do with Israel. Israel has nothing to do with Yeshua. So for us to want to put them together is like really stupid. What we're doing here is really stupid. It makes no sense. But it's what the scriptures say, that Israel and Yeshua are the same. Okay, the story continues. I'm going to read it in picture form. Now, Yeshua says, do not be grieved or angry with yourselves, Israel, because God sent me, Yeshua, before you to preserve life. God sent me, Yeshua, he says it twice. God sent me before you to preserve for you a she'arit, a remnant in the earth, she'arit, and to keep you alive by a great escape. I will also provide for you. He says it twice. God sent me. This is why he's a picture of Yeshua. Joseph is a picture of Yeshua because he was the sent one. Yeshua was the sent one. Now, I've got all these scriptures here about the remnant. If you don't know what the remnant is, you cannot understand the day of the Lord. you cannot understand the birth pangs, and you cannot understand Israel herself. The remnant is very, very important. The remnant is whoever of Israel is left in the birth pangs. That's what the remnant is. It's not nowadays. It's not for the last 2,000 years. The remnant doesn't even, the She'arit doesn't even exist until the birth pangs. Isaiah 10, 20 through 23. Now in that day, when is this? When is this? In the day of the Lord is where the remnant lives, where it exists, in the day of the Lord. The remnant of Israel and those of the house of Jacob who have escaped. That's what Joseph said. I was sent to provide a remnant by a great escape. It's the same word in Hebrew. By a great escape. Those who have escaped will only rely on the Lord, the Holy One of Israel. A remnant, a She'arit, will return. A She'arit of Jacob to the mighty one of the mighty God. For though Israel may be like the sand of the sea, only a She'arit within them will return. Messianic Judaism for the last 30 years has been saying, we're reaching the remnant of Israel. No, we're not. There is no remnant of Israel yet.
Right.
What they mean is the Jews who will get saved. Messianic Jews are the remnant. No, we are not. The remnant does not yet exist. It's only in the day of the Lord. So this is where all the clarity of Israel meeting their Messiah as a nation falls apart. It's with this word remnant. If you understand remnant, you can understand the picture. If you don't understand what the remnant is, the whole thing becomes fuzzy, and you end up teaching what the church teaches, which is exactly what has happened. There's got to be some clarity about this. A She'arit will return, a She'arit of Jacob to the mighty God. Only a She'arit within them will return. A destruction is determined. Well, what's the destruction that's determined in that day? What is the destruction that's determined in that day? The birth pangs. The birth pangs. The 7 years of the birth pangs. That's the destruction that is determined. How do we know that? Because Daniel says it. He says, an overflowing torrent. An overflowing torrent, a destruction is determined when he's talking about the abomination of desolation in the birth pangs. Overflowing with righteousness. The birth pangs will be overflowing with righteousness. Let me say it in Christianese so you can understand. The tribulation is going to be filled with righteousness.
Right.
That's what that means. For a complete destruction, one decreed by the Lord, the Lord will execute in the whole earth. That's the birth pangs, and it's going to be filled with righteousness. Well, what in God's name is the righteousness that's going to fill the birth pangs?
Judaism.
Right. The She'arit. Jewish people coming to know their Messiah. That's the She'arit. That's the remnant. That's what the whole world is waiting for. Let me say this again. In Romans 11, it's talking about this. The Jewish people coming to know the Lord as a nation. And it says, if the Jewish people get born again, what will that be but life from the dead for the whole earth? Right. The whole world is awaiting this. The whole world is awaiting this thing that nobody knows about. Nobody knows about Israel being coming back together with Yeshua in the day of the Lord. And yet the whole world is awaiting it. The whole world should know. We don't. I have a theory. Jeremiah 23. I will gather the she'arit of my flock out of all the countries where I have driven them. So when does this have to be? It has to be after Rome dispersed all of Israel in 70 AD. Yes?
Yep.
Because that's where God drove them into all the nations. So it has to be after that. And will bring them back to their folds, and they shall be fruitful and multiply. Joel 3:5, for in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem there will be those that escape. There's that word escape again. And among the she'arit, those whom the Lord shall call. What do you think that means? Among the she'arit, those whom God shall call. What do you think that means? Those are the ones who are going to get born again.
Yeah.
Among the she'arit, among the Jews who are left in the birthpangs, some of those will get born again. Probably most. Micah 2:4 and 2:12. In that day they will take up against you a taunt and say, we are completely destroyed. This is the birthpangs. I will surely gather the she'arit of Yisrael. The she'arit is always, always, always in the birthpangs. It has not come yet. Are you following what I'm saying?
Yep.
The remnant does not yet exist. It will in the kingdom. All right? So let's talk about the birth pangs. Just as the brothers of Joseph were reunited in famine, what year of the famine was it? The second.
The third year.
It didn't say the beginning.
Well, it said 2 years have already passed. So it's got to be at the end of 2 years. Third year.
Might be the point in between the end of the second year, beginning of third. Might be. For the famine has been in the land these 2 years. Well, that could be basically any time during that 2 years. It doesn't mean they're done.
Technically, no.
It doesn't mean they're finished. The famine has been in the land these 2 years.
It wouldn't be 2 years yet.
And there's still 5. Well, you're not thinking in Hebrew.
That's true.
It's sometime during the second year that he meets his
Maybe in
brothers.
a second.
That's really all we know from the Hebrew. And there are still 5 years left in which there will be neither plowing nor harvesting. So here's the birth pangs. The Chevlei HaMashiach. Say Chevlei.
Chevlei HaMashiach.
Say Chevlei. You got to work up that spit. Chevlei. Chevlei, not Hevlei. If you say Hevlei, totally different word in Hebrew. Chevlei. So during the Chevlei HaMashiach, we know when that is. It's in the day of the Lord, the 7th day. And it's the first 7 years of the 7th day. If we apply the picture of Joseph to the Chevlei HaMashiach, what year will he meet his brothers?
2003. 2003? Yeah.
6002, in the second year. All we know is see how you confuse that? All we know is that it's sometime during the second year of the famine that he meets his brothers. That's all we know from the Hebrew. Yes?
But do the birth pangs start on the year 6001?
The birth pangs start at the beginning of 6001, end of 6000. So you have 1 year of the birth pangs, 6001, second year of the birth pangs, 6002.
Okay, yeah.
So sometime during the year 6002, according to my theory, I'm not saying this is set in stone, this is what I believe, just what I believe.
The logic fits.
The logic fits, right? Sometime during the year 6002, Israel will come to know their Messiah. The remnant will come to know their Messiah. Just as the brothers of Joseph were reunited in famine and hard times, Israel will be reunited with Yeshua during the birth pangs. For the famine has been in this land these 2 years. So I'm saying Israel might be reunited with Yeshua in the second year of the birth pangs. What year is the second year of the birth pangs?
2002.
What year is the second year of the birth pangs?
Double dose.
What?
602.
Still not hearing it. What year is this?
6,000.
Let's say it together, like middle schoolers. What year is the second year of the birth pangs?
6,002.
You don't have to get louder. That's what the middle schoolers do too.
We said it 8 times, you still can't hear us.
Excuse me?
All right. Now I found something really weird. I never thought about this. I've never seen it, never taught it, never saw it. And so I thought, second year? I don't know any pictures about Israel meeting their Messiah in the second year. I don't even know of any. I found a bunch. Israel, like, becoming what they're supposed to be. The tabernacle being set up. The temple work starting. The priesthood starting. The kingship being set up. It always starts in the second year. I didn't know this. Yeah. So here's what I found. Exodus 40:17. Now in the first month of the second year, on the first day of the month, the tabernacle was erected. Well, what is the tabernacle? What is the tabernacle? What is it? It's the body of Messiah. It even says in Revelation, it says, and the false Messiah spoke against the tabernacle of God, which is the body of Messiah, which is the holy ones.
Right.
This is the remnant. The tabernacle is the believers. And it gets set up and erected in the second year. Yeah? Numbers 1:1, very first thing in the book of Numbers. On the first of the second month in the second year, after they had come out of the land of Egypt, Israel is mustered and counted and put into their tribes, and they become an orderly nation before God. Before that, they weren't. They were just kind of scattered and dispersed. They didn't know what to do. But on the second year, God put them in order, and they became what they were supposed to be as his nation in the second year. Numbers 10:11. Now in the second year, in the second month, on the 20th of the month, the cloud was lifted from over the tabernacle of the testimony, and for the first time, Israel moved out. They left Mount Sinai and they started moving toward Kadesh. And second year, only this time, second year, second month, just like when they were numbered. So that means in the same month they became a nation. In the same month they set out as a nation and to follow God.
Follow God, follow Yeshua.
Follow God, follow Yeshua. Right. 1 Kings 6:1. Now this is weird. I never saw these before. In the fourth, well actually it's one after this. In the fourth year of Solomon's reign over Israel, in the second month. Now in 2 Chronicles 3:2 it says the second day of the second month, that he began to build the house of the Lord. God began to build his people. Because remember, the house is his people, yes?
Yeah.
God began to set up, to number, to establish, to anoint, to direct, and to build his people in the second month, second year. Second day. Always the second.
Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that strange? The temple was begun on the second month, second day. Now, these ones are strange. I never saw these before. These are about the kings being set up. Now remember, there's southern Israel, which is Judah, where Jerusalem is, and there's northern Israel, which is Ephraim or Samaria or northern Israel, or just called Israel. And they split. Well, they kept having kings. South had kings, north had kings. Guess what happened? Every time there was a new king, they were coronated. They became king in the second year of the other kingdom. Yeah, it's very strange. 1 Kings 15:25. Now Nadav ben Jeroboam became king over Israel, north, in the second year of Asa, king of Judah, south. You get it? The coronation of the north guy happened in the second year of the south guy. 2 Kings 1:17. Jeroboam became king in Israel, north, in the second year of Jehoram, son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah. It happened again. In the second year of the south king, north king became king. You see what's happening? Israel is having a king in the second year. Always in the second year. 2 Kings 14:1. In the second year of Joash, son of Jehoahaz, king of Israel, north, Amaziah, son of Joash, king of Judah, south, became king. Now it flips. Now the king of the south becomes king in the second year of the king of the north. And these are all different kings. So it keeps happening over and over again. 2 Kings 15:32. In the second year of Pekah, son of Remaliah, king of Israel, north, Jotam, son of Uzziah, king of Judah, became king in the south. It happened again. In the second year of the north king, the south king became king. Isn't that strange? So in my opinion, God ordered, well, you can't become king in your own second year, can you?
No.
Can you become king in your own? Did President Trump become president in his second year as president?
No.
Can't do it. So you got to have another king. And his second year, the king becomes king. Isn't that wild?
Kind of weird.
It is strange. But it's to keep that picture going, the pattern going of God establishing his nation in the second year. It's always in the second year. Ezra 3:8. The Jews have come back from Babylon. They're going to rebuild the temple. When do you think they're going to rebuild it?
I guess second year?
Second year or second month? Let's find out. It's second year and second month. In the second year of their coming to the house of God in Jerusalem, in the second month, Zerubbabel and Yeshua and the rest of the priests and Levites began the work of building the temple and appointing the priesthood. So God set up his nation. They became holy. They came to know him and to move with him in the second year. The temple was begun. Ezra 4:24. Now, check this out. They stopped the temple work. These enemies rose up and they said, "What are you doing building the house of God in Jerusalem?" And so they put a stop to it for 16 years. So that means they have to start it over again, yes? Guess when they restarted? In the second year. Ezra 4:24. Then the work on the house of God in Jerusalem ceased, and it was stopped until the second year of the reign of Darius the king. So in the second year of Darius of Persia, 16 years later, they restarted building the house of God. I believe all these things were set up by God. All of them. To keep this picture and pattern going. Just as the brothers of Yeshua were reunited in hard times, Israel will be reunited with Yeshua during the birthpangs. Okay, back to the Chevlei HaMashiach. So we have the 7 years of the birthpangs. Year 1 is 6001. Year 2 is 6002. And by the way, it gets even more precise. So I'm saying I believe this. I'm not saying you have to believe it, but the pattern fits. Look at this. There's one book in the Bible that talks about the birth pangs in all of its details. Picture upon picture upon picture upon picture, and all the pictures are the same. And that's the book of Revelation. I have this book called The Book of Revelation Decoded by Rabbi K.A. Schneider, who has no problem whatsoever saying Christ. And Christians and teaching all the Christian doctrines that are not found in Judaism. There's a few little Jewish things in this book. The title of the book is Revelation Decoded. So I thought, well, he's going to decode it.
Right.
Doesn't decode it at all. All he does is say what all the Christians have taught for 2,000 years, basically. The book of Revelation is the easiest book in the Bible. You know why? Because of all the sevens in it. It's picture on top of picture on top of picture on top of picture of sevens. There's 7 seals, 7 congregations, 7 angels with 7 trumpets, and there's 7 angels with 7 what are called bowls or vials. Bad translation. It's machtot, which is fire pans. You know, like a fire pan, like you have a fireplace and you get a shovel to shovel all the ashes and stuff out. Like that, only bigger. The pan is about this big. It's about 8 inches across. And you hold it's got a long bar, and you hold it, and they would get the live coals from the fire on the altar with that fire pan. And there's 7 of them in the book of Revelation. Like there's 7 of everything else. Why do you think there's so many 7s in the book of Revelation?
Because everything has to do with the day of the Lord.
Patterns.
It's about the birthpangs. How many years is the birthpangs? 7. That's why there's 7 of everything. There's 1 per year. That decodes the book of Revelation. Done. So as you're reading the book of Revelation, and it says there's a third
That's the third year.
thing, it's the 3rd year. Second thing is the 2nd year.
Makes sense.
Simple, yeah? That's the book of Revelation. So, all we got to do is look at what happens in the 2nd year. 2nd fire pan, 2nd seal, 2nd trumpet, and it should tell us details about what's happening in the 2nd year. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it would.
All right. So in the book of Revelation, in the 2nd seal, in 6:3, Revelation 6:3, it says there's a red horse and the rider brings war to the world. The 2nd angel with the trumpet says a fiery mountain falls from the heavens and turns a third of the sea to blood. That's in 8:8. And then, I don't have the scripture here, farther on in chapter 15, I believe, the 2nd angel with the fire pan, it says the sea is turned to a dead man's blood. Same exact picture. But people think of them consecutively. Like if it's in the beginning of the book of Revelation, it's earlier. And if it's later in the book of Revelation, it's later. No! Just follow the 7s. Just follow 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's all. But you can see that the picture is the same. Yes?
Yep.
2nd angel with the shofar and the 2nd angel with the fire pan, they both have the sea turning to blood. And warfare. Okay, now it gets even more specific. Here's what it looks like. The first 3.5 years, the first 3.5 years are 1,260 days. Then is the middle, where the abomination of desolation takes place. I taught this a few weeks ago. And then the second half of the birthpangs is 1,260 days. If we cut this in half, the first part, which is 3.5 years, if we cut it in half, it gives us halfway through 1 3/4 days. 1 3/4 days. And I thought, that's weird. It's kind of imprecise. And I thought, what am I thinking? In Judaism, it's incredibly precise. Why? Because every year has 4 parts. of 3 months.
Right.
12 months in the year, yes?
Yep.
12 months in the year? Yes?
Yeah.
And each part has 3 months.
Yep.
4 of them. They're called tekufot. Say tekufah. Tekufah. That's a season. And there are 4 of them in a Jewish year. And by the way, we're going counterclockwise, not clockwise. The Tekufah of Nisan goes from Nisan to end of Sivan, beginning of Tammuz. The Tekufah of Tammuz goes from Tammuz to the end of Elul. The Tekufah of Tishri goes from the beginning of Tishri to the end of Kislev. The Tekufah of Tevet, which we are at the beginning of right now. Tekufah of Tevet goes from Tevet to the end of the year Adar. Then you start over again. 3/4 of the year. 3/4 of the year. How many tekufot is that?
3.
3. 1, 2, 3. However, when you're talking about the birth pangs, what is the date of day 1 of the birth pangs? You better know this. What's the date? What's the date? When did the birth pangs start? What date?
Oh, Rosh Hashanah.
Rosh Hashanah, of course. The new year, Rosh Hashanah. So we start our counting of the tekufot with Tishri,
Right.
not with Nisan.
Halfway through.
So 1 3/4 days of the birth pangs, or 1 3/4 years, if we want to go halfway through the first half of the birth pangs. So we're cutting the birth pangs in half, then we're cutting that half in half. We're cutting the birth pangs in half, first half, then we're cutting that half in half.
Right.
Are you with me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we cut that half in half, it gives us 1 3/4 years, or 1 3/4 days, because each year is a day. 1 3/4 days. And each year has 3 tekufot. Tekufah of Tishri, 4, thank you. The Tekufah of Tishri, the Tekufah of Tevet, and the Tekufah of Nisan. So the end of the 3rd Tekufah is what date? Right here.
It's going to be the 1st of Tammuz.
First of Tammuz.
Tammuz 1.
Tammuz 1 or Sivan 30.
Yeah.
I think it's Tammuz 1 would probably be better.
4th month.
The new moon of Tammuz. Yes?
Yeah.
I'm going to show you something that's going to freak you out.
Go for it.
My theory, this is my theory, is that,
I like theory.
yeah, good, that Joseph is a picture of Yeshua, and he meets his family, his brothers, in the 2nd year of the birth pangs, 2nd year of the bad times, yes? Therefore, the 2nd year of the birth pangs. Just give him a minute to bring it back up. I think it's in the middle of those 3.5, that 2nd day. The time period of the 2nd day. I think it's right in the middle of the first half of the birth pangs. Right in the middle. And I'll tell you why. Because the abomination of desolation takes place. Israel comes to see Hasatan in the middle of the birth pangs, yes?
Yes.
Why wouldn't they come to see their Messiah in the same pattern? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, why not cut this in half? Look at this. The 3rd Tekufah is Tammuz 1. Joseph, the son of Jacob, was born in Haran on the 1st of Tammuz. And he died on the same day. Isn't that a trip?
That is a trip.
That's from Chabad, the Chabad website, under History, Rosh Chodesh Tammuz. Rosh Chodesh Tammuz. I'm saying that Joseph is a picture of Yeshua. I'm saying that Yeshua will meet Israel in the second year, just like Joseph did. I'm cutting the time period in half. I'm cutting the first in half, brings us to the year 2.
Yeah.
We know it's in the second, but we don't know when in the second year. I'm saying it's on Tammuz 1.
It wouldn't be the
Is that
second
when
month.
Yeshua's birth is happening?
No. I'm saying that it's on Tammuz 1. And I'm saying that because if you cut the first half of the birthpangs in half, you have 1 3/4 years. 1 3/4 years brings you to exactly, precisely Tammuz 1. The rabbis say that Tammuz 1 is when this guy Yosef was born and died. It's his birthday and his death day. He's a picture of Yeshua. Israel's going to come to meet him. So why not have it on his birthday and death day?
Israel's a picture
Because
of Yeshua,
he's
so
the picture of Yeshua.
Yeshua, so
Right.
Israel gets born on that day.
Right.
Yeah.
Israel gets born again when they meet their Messiah. It's the death day and the birthday of Yosef. And so it's the birthday and the death day of Yeshua in Israel. Yeshua inside Israel. When you were born again, you were born again. Yes?
Yep.
And you died
To yourself.
to yourself. You died. Your old person died and you became a new person. Same thing's going to happen to Israel. They're going to be born in the birth pangs. I used to think it was here, in the middle of the birth pangs. I don't believe that anymore. I believe it's in the second year of the birth
And
pangs.
it would be the second month then.
And I think it's going to take 1 3/4 years for all of Israel to get born again. I think they come to see their Messiah in the middle of horrors, and they get born again and born again and born again and born again. And then at the middle of the birth pangs, at the abomination of desolation, they flee to the wilderness, to Kadesh. They're already born again.
When is the war of Magog?
Let's not talk about that.
Okay.
And so this is my theory. I can't prove it because I don't have scripture to say it. But my theory is proven only by the patterns, by the pictures. If Yosef meets his brothers, Israel, in the second year of the bad times, I believe Yeshua will meet all of Israel in the second year of the birth pangs. Let's pray. Lord, thank you that you're pouring out your Spirit on your people, Israel, and you're pouring out your Spirit on your people, your body. And that the fullness of the Gentiles is going to come in, which is them knowing you through Judaism, them knowing your feasts, knowing your fasts, knowing your sacrifices, knowing all the things in Judaism that show Yeshua, the fullness of the Gentiles. And Lord, you're going to show Israel as a nation who you are. You're going to show us your circumcision in the birth pangs. And Israel is going to know you as your remnant, your she'arit. And I ask, Father, that your Spirit would continue to bring Jewish people to know their Messiah, and continue to bring Gentiles to know their Messiah and to see him as a Jew. In the name of Yeshua. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.